Hello everyone and welcome to our Alumni Talks webinar that will give you first-hand information on Queen's University Smith School of Business MBA experience. My name is Mila and I am the moderator of this webinar on behalf of Unimi. Please welcome our panelists, Teresa Pires, Associate Director of Admissions and Recruitment at Smith School of Business, and one of their successful alumni, Blaine Kovacik, AI Strategy Consultant at Deloitte. They will be telling us about the educational journey and how acquiring a degree from the Smith School of Business can enhance your career. You will be able to send your questions throughout the entire webinar by typing them in the chat box, and our panelists will take time to give you an answer during the Q&A session in the second half of this event. Okay, let's check the sound now. Could you please write in the chat box if you can hear me? Okay, thank you. So everything is set and we can start with the presentation now.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mila. It is a pleasure to be here with you through Unimi. It's been a great partnership thus far, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to not only share a little bit about our program, but to also introduce you to one of our successful alumni. So I'm going to take you through the next 20-25 minutes or so of some slides. Blaine and I will be going back and forth. I'll be asking him some questions. At any point in time, please feel free to ask myself or Blaine any question that you might have about his experience or about the program in general. Our agenda will be such that we'll hear from Blaine, of course. You're going to learn what an ideal MBA candidate looks like. We're also going to help to shed some light on what sets us apart or what differentiates our MBA program to any other MBA program that you might be thinking about. As well, you're going to hear about some of the great resources that we offer to students, and that's going to come firsthand through Blaine and his experience, as well your return on investment. Ultimately, you want to make sure this is going to be the right choice for you. The application requirements and qualifications we'll quickly run through, and then of course we'll open it up to any questions that you might have. My name is Teresa Pires. As Mila introduced, I am the Associate Director of Recruitment and Admissions. I work for the full-time MBA program, which is based in Kingston, Ontario. We are in between Toronto and Montreal, so two of the largest cities in Canada. And the program itself is in a small town, but accessible to any of the major cities. And Blaine is a great example of that, as he is currently sitting in Calgary. So I'll turn it over to Blaine to do an introduction. Blaine, if you want to introduce yourself and shed some light on what you were doing prior to the MBA and what you're doing currently.
Absolutely, and happy to be here as well. So before the MBA, I was an environmental consultant, which really was had a very technical focus with it. So I was, as an example for everyone, if there was a gas station that was going to be reclaimed and repurposed, I was the guy that would be, digging the dirt out and making sure that the site was clean prior to, that future development being there. So that was very sciencey focused, and I was always wondering why. Why was my work important to companies? Why were they doing an environmental cleanup of a large scale such as this? So that's really that, and understanding kind of the moving pieces associated with that was what really guided me towards the MBA.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And if you want to share also, you're an engineer. You did your degree at University of Alberta, is that correct?
Yeah.
And so having those technical skills, I'm sure that came in handy during your time in the MBA. We often hear candidates wondering, I have a very technical background or an arts background. How is that going to fit within an MBA? Maybe you can alleviate some concerns, letting people know that it absolutely is valuable.
Oh yeah, certainly. I'd say it's divided between there is some math, and as the GMAT test, math is important, and there's a reason why it's part of the GMAT and it's an admission criteria going into an MBA. So especially I found my technical focus was quite handy in comparison to just a broader, more general population going into it. And so definitely there were some times where and we'll talk about much more about teams, but yeah, there were some times where I kind of was able to really demonstrate that ability and it came in handy, and it provided us a great report and deliverable at the end of the day.
So environmental specialist to AI strategy consultant. Did you know coming into an MBA that you wanted to work as a consultant in the space of AI, nonetheless?
I would say that I wanted to be a consultant. Since I was familiar with the lifestyle, I like the lifestyle. It's fast-paced. I'm energized every day, and from that kind of environment. But in terms of the focus and the skill, the focus, that was a big change that happened actually in the middle of the MBA, and I came to the MBA knowing that I wanted to kind of really get a more holistic viewpoint, and frankly, I was happy, or wasn't expecting to, but would have been happy had I returned to the environmental field. But when I really found and discovered analytics, it was this one thing. I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. So yeah, safe to say I'm quite pleased where I am right now, and I've been having a lot of fun with it so far.
Great. And I know this, given this climate in which we are in with COVID-19 right now, I'm assuming you're working from home.
Yes, yeah. This is my apartment here in Calgary. It's fairly simple, but yeah, I've been making it work. It's this is a kitchen table, and I'm sure this is a situation that many people are dealing with right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I guess Deloitte's still continuing to work with clients, and you're still working on a daily basis given everything that's happening right now.
Oh, of course, yeah. Sorry, yeah, working away. Still, there's been some interruption in terms of those workshops and interviews, and really, yeah, as can be imagined, the face-to-face has been taken away. But no, we've done a really good job in terms of utilizing all the resources that are available, Zoom, and everything else and this platform, something very similar to this platform, to enable it. And so safe to say it's not business as usual. There's been some interruption, but we're making the best of it. And thankfully, all the infrastructure, like Deloitte has allowed or encouraged people to work in whatever setting that is best for them. And so sometimes that includes work from home. So this is just much more of instead of say 10, 20% of people at home, it's 100. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, that's comforting to hear in some ways that, at least you can continue doing what you love to do, and that hasn't, it's changed a little bit, but you're still working with clients, and things with Deloitte are still moving forward. So that's in some ways comforting to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk a little bit about, as we go through this presentation, the slides in the presentation, what makes us different, or what sets Smith apart. I think there are many things. One, right out of the gate, rather, is that we are a January start. So our program starts in January. January to December is the cycle. We are a one-year MBA, so we truly follow a European model. We were the first in Canada to move to a one-year format, and being one of the only top-tier MBA programs that starts in January in Canada. So this really does align with Canada's corporate hiring structure, and really has shifted students' mindsets in many ways to now being able to start work as soon as they complete the MBA program. So most of our students, when they complete the program in December, get right back into the workforce in January. So there's not that lag for many people, or that long of a break. So falling directly in line with Canada's corporate hiring structure is one of the main reasons why we started in January, and why we continue to do so today. And I'm going to turn it over to Blaine to get a better understanding of why he made the choice to choose the Smith MBA program with all the many options there were available to him.
Certainly. And so I would say that my first real exposure to Smith started with actually one of my best friends. He was enrolled in the program 3 years ago, or no, sorry, 5 years ago. My mistake. 5 years ago, and I saw a drastic change in terms of not his personality, but just how, like, our conversations. They became much more in depth and much more broader in scope. So it was like just a question of saying, I am curious to know about whatever problem it may be, say a global geopolitics problem, he was able to really kind of like eloquently indicate how that that problem, or that problem would be looked upon. But anyways, so looking at my friend as that example, it really he put my interest into it. But then really when I started looking into the program, I found out that it's not focused just on they will give you all of the business foundations and the fundamentals, but really it's that plus. So the interpersonal skills, team skills, leadership skills was almost front and center. It is my interpretation of the program. And like I say, so having that technical skill set, I knew I needed to build out that kind of stuff, the rest of it, if I really want to be a leader, especially in the business world. And even, like I say, as my friend served as an example, a very knowledgeable and well-rounded individual that could practically talk about anything.
And I think also the transition, do you think it would have been, I mean, I believe that many people can make a transition in their careers without an MBA, but I do think in many cases, now having done this for 10 years, I do see the transitions happen much faster and bigger transitions. People going from an engineering or an environmental specialist background to a role in consulting, for example, like you did. Do you think that would have been possible without the MBA as soon as you were able to do it?
I would not wager on that. No, I would say that not only just on the recruitment side, but even in my day-to-day execution, there were many instances and things that I have dealt with just on very early, being 3 months into my job, practically from day one. I would say the MBA materials and some of the concepts that I took away from the program have been utilized. So I think if you can do it, it is possible, but I almost don't think you will succeed very well if I'm able to make that strong of a statement on it. So yeah, it is. I would absolutely recommend it, and I know sitting in my spot right now, but it's a little bit biased, but I would absolutely recommend it to enable like someone to be a successful, talented, and consultant at the end of the day.
No, I think you're absolutely right. In many ways, the MBA just helps accelerate your career, and we see that year over year. And what makes an ideal candidate is ultimately what many, I'm sure, are thinking. This all sounds great in how Blaine is describing his transition in his career and how he's utilizing his MBA skills, but you need to get into an MBA program in order to make that happen. So I'm going to talk briefly about how we assess candidates so that you can see yourself in some of these examples that I'm going to provide. So we look at 4 different, I'm going to call them buckets, when we're looking at an MBA candidate. Intellectual horsepower encompasses both the GMAT as well as your GPA. So a 4-year undergraduate degree is required. In some cases, we will make concessions for a 3-year undergraduate degree. And so that is going to be on a case by case, but in most cases, we see 4-year undergraduate degrees, and we assess your GPA on the last 2 years. And then we look at your standardized tests. So we accept GRE as well, but in most cases, candidates are applying with the GMAT. It is most often the preferred standardized test for top business schools. We like to see a strong score. So our minimum on our website, you'll see, is a 600. However, we tell candidates not to self-select themselves out. There are some fantastic accomplishments that many candidates bring to the table, and that might mean that we're assessing you holistically on your work experience rather than your GMAT score. So I want you to be cognizant of that. We do, of course, want to see that you can handle the rigor of an MBA because it is quite intense on the quantitative side or the technical side, but you will also need to have all of the other pieces to be an ideal candidate for our program. Intellectual horsepower is going to assess GPA and GMAT or GRE. And you should have good scores, but if there is a score that is weaker, we're hoping to see that offsetted in some of the other areas, such as work experience. So in your resume, we can see your accomplishments. Ideally, it should be arranged in such a way where we can see the impacts that you have made within your work experiences. We'd like to see you identify 2 or 3 points, and ideally in 1 to 2 pages. Shouldn't be longer than that. You want to tease us with your resume. We want to be able to ask you further questions, delve a little bit deeper in the interview. So this is just a great opportunity for you to highlight your accomplishments and your impact in your work experiences. And of course, don't undervalue any volunteer experience that you have. If you sit on a board, if you are involved in any sports related activities, all of that can be assessed and quantified to determine whether or not you'd be a good fit for our program. The interpersonal skills, really, we can assess this through what your references are saying about you, as well through the interview and any interaction that you have with any member of our team. So this is, we're hoping that every candidate that comes into our MBA program has strong interpersonal skills. But this is also something that if you are looking to develop, let's say, networking skills, our MBA program does allow and provide great resources for you to hone in on those skills and build on those skills. So be self-aware. If you're really not comfortable networking, tell us about that. This is an area where we can help develop you, but you should have the baseline in being a strong communicator from the onset. So again, we see this and we assess this through what your references are saying and through the interview process. And lastly, we want to see that you're coachable. Any team experience that you can bring to the table, we want to see that through your resume, and we want to be able to we want you to be able to showcase that through examples in the interview. So we will ask you to provide us examples during the interview on how you've worked in a team, how you've led teams. This does not necessarily mean that you've had to have leadership or management experience per se, but if you do have any leadership, then we want you to bring that forward, and we want you to talk about it and provide some solid examples in the interview. And this is how, this is how you can shine. This is what we consider spike factors, and you might hear that term across other MBA programs that you're looking at. The spike factors really do help to assess who you are outside of just your accomplishments or your work experience. So make sure that any hobbies, interests, any volunteer experience, again, any sports related activities, include all of that in your resume, and please make sure you're providing some solid examples in the interview. So I hope that helps to quickly just outline the ideal MBA candidate and how you can showcase your strengths and showcase who you are to the MBA admissions committee. Your learning environment will be, as I said, in Kingston, Ontario. Goods Hall is where our MBA is based. You will have your own separate MBA team rooms. So our program is designed in teams. So we'll get to that in a moment. You do have access to the entire facility. Just a quick note, everything you need is in Goods Hall, ultimately. Some of our students do venture outside of campus, but to let you know, all of the resources you need for the MBA is delivered right to your team room. All of your classes will be in a short distance to your team rooms as well. Most of our MBA students live within a 10 to 15 minute walking distance from campus. So everything is relatively close. We are a small city of about 160,000 people, and a small city means a higher return on your investment, in my opinion. It is less expensive to be in a smaller city. And we are a small program, so you do get that added advantage of really getting to know your peers and your classmates very well. So ultimately, when it comes to the team environment, this learning environment is the best environment in which we've been able to assess year over year as ensuring our students are successful in building strong communication skills and working very well together as peers and learning from each other. And we are going to hear a little bit more about the team experience through Blaine's team. If he's going to take a few minutes just to describe his team, who's on his team, and then maybe shed some further light on how that experience helped to develop his leadership skills. So I'll turn it over to you, Blaine, to describe how that experience was for you.
Thank you, Teresa. So yeah, my team was composed of 6 individuals. So myself, and I'll give a quick little description of each individual as well. So myself, I called myself the scientist, and then I had another 2 other gentlemen with me. One had a financial services background, and then we had a professional athlete that retired the year prior. And so I called him the coach, the financial services individual. He definitely was a doer, similar to myself. So we were very detail oriented. But then, anyways, there were and then one more fellow. He had a computer science, but with a consulting sort of background as well. And so he was very much our interviewer. Almost we called him the CEO because he always had that high level kind of strategic viewpoint. And then two women, and so this woman was first one was from Dubai and had a computer science background, but was highly skilled, probably the best designer I've ever seen in my life. So she was very creative and just kind of whenever our deliverables needed a little bit of flair, we would go to her. So she was called the artist. And then lastly, there was a woman with the telecommunications, and she was business development. And so if there's ever an idea to be sold to someone, like whether that be someone, we called her, she was the saleswoman. And so all of us together were a very diverse team, and all had different skill sets. But through the program, we were able to really mesh together and to beyond my wildest expectations in terms of what a team could do. So yeah, it was just varying backgrounds, and by the way, the distribution was 4 of us were domestic, 2 of us were international, and it was great. Yeah, really interesting sort of dynamic between all of us. And then in terms of us with our leadership skills, a common event or a little team norm that we created was to make goals on Friday and then have feedback on Friday. So feedback in terms of how things went, like say from the deliverables and the school aspect, but just even the personal, right? I had a goal of I wanted to work out 3 times a week. And we would reflect on that and then just, not solution it, but just like get some commentary and, hey, I saw this, like, and you, like if you were in this kind of mood, you were much more conducive to working out or something like that, just stuff like that. Just like, commentary, and we really built each other up, I'd say, throughout the year. And that was really, really quite awesome, which I enjoyed and took away from. And obviously at this point in time, I have 5 more lifelong friends, is how I look at it.
That's lovely. And then as you described, I love how you described that you guys would come together and you had specific days. You would structure your team meetings around certain days, which I think having a schedule really helped. And what I hear year over year, when teams get together, they really do have to keep on schedule because the first 6 months goes by very, very quickly. And so you really have to be working strongly together to ensure your success overall.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of if you want to just quickly describe, so if there was a deliverable, I'm just going to throw an example, Blaine. So if there was a deliverable and you were, let's say, the lead and you had a second on that deliverable, basically everyone is working together, but there's always going to be somebody on the team that's going to lead the project.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives a little bit more insight into how our program like ours really develops those leadership skills. So you might not be necessarily comfortable as a leader, but the way that your team designs when things are due is really around giving everybody an opportunity, from my understanding, everybody an opportunity to lead or be a second on that project. Is that correct, Blaine?
Of course. And again, one of the team norms is that we didn't want to just kind of get through the 6 months by using everyone's strengths and just saying, hey, it all worked out. It was really, so if, as an example, say there's business analytics, and I was, I work with stats all day long kind of thing. So I was quite comfortable with that course. I was not the lead on any of those assignments. More so, I fell to the second. So kind of, just the, here's where we're going. Well, actually, no, let's consider this. So that was at most as much influence as I could put on things because, yeah, there was one of the gentlemen wanted to really increase his ability. He said that he had basically forgotten high school math at that point. So wanted to really get into that. And it was excellent for being able to build out leadership, I would say, and in areas that you're haven't really had any exposure to, or aren't very confident, it's not to say that you are going to do badly, because you have all those people. We're in a very tight-knit group to really kind of get everyone through it. But at the same time, yeah, you do take on responsibility, and the team does look to you for some guidance.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point, is that you can enhance your skills in areas where you might have a weakness. And this is what we try to do in this methodology of building the front end of the program, so the first 6 months in teams. It really is to mirror today's workplace. Ultimately, we design our MBA like a business environment. So you can see here from this photo, the team rooms are actually designed like boardrooms. So this is an actual team room where students are working on a project together, and they're across from each other so that they can, again, build that communication and that leadership. And that's ultimately how we develop strong managers coming out of the MBA. And I think Blaine's just described some great examples of how he was able to do that in his team. The other area which I'll quickly take a moment to focus on is our methodology. So there really isn't one way of teaching in our program. We try to merge both the technical expertise as well as your interpersonal skills. So there is a theme throughout our program, and that is to really ensure that you're coming out as a strong leader, and that, again, comes out in the interpersonal side, but that you can also handle the technical side of the program. So things like working on real-world business projects or computer simulations, live cases, or case-based methodology. All of this is part of what you're learning and how you're learning in a program like ours. So yes, you're going to be in a team for the first 6 months of the program, where you're going to develop these skills through the course content and through working on projects together. And then the last 6 months, you can really hone in on a specific area that you want to build. Maybe that's analytics, as Blaine did, or you want to enhance your skills from a consulting or a finance area. It really is designed by you in the last 6 months. Our website gives more detail on all of the elective courses that you can take, and it also lists our specializations. You can choose to specialize, or you can opt to just do a general management stream. It is really up to you and what that looks like. As long as you keep in mind that the front end of the program, so January to June timeframe, is going to be very structured, and it is a real simulation of a working environment. So 8:30 to 4:30, Monday to Friday. So that's really where you see the intensity of the MBA, is really in the first 6 months. Again, keeping in mind that throughout the entire program, you're going to have a lot of resources to ensure your success. A team coach is going to be in place for the first 6 months to make sure that you and your team are working well together, and of course, to mitigate any issues that might arise. So one of the other aspects of our MBA program is how else you can get involved to build leadership skills. So it's not just through the course content or the projects or working in a team. It's also through getting involved in clubs or activities that we have throughout the year that you can get involved in. This is completely optional. Most of our students do tend to participate in one or two of these areas. Clubs is an area where you can really hone in, especially if you've had no experience. So let's say for someone who wants to work in marketing, hasn't had any previous experience working in marketing, well, you could get involved in the MBA marketing club and really hone in on networking skills, networking with those that work in marketing as brand managers or other types of roles, and potentially do some interesting lunch and learn series to learn more about the industry. So great ways in which you can get involved. I know it is a one-year program, and you're probably thinking, how do I find the time? It is a very fast-paced program, but this is where it helps to get you outside of the classroom, get to know your peers, and also just get involved in something where you can really enhance your skills and bring something to the table that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do in the classroom. So Blaine, quickly, is there anything that you'd like to touch on that you got involved in, and how did you find getting involved in something outside of the intense classroom time?
It was great, actually, and so yeah, I'm going to share a little story. But first of all, I was a vice president within the technology club, and that was very early on in the year, before I had, like I say, was aware of analytics and had formulated that goal. But so yeah, I was involved in the technology club. It was great. It kind of, yeah, was a wonderful way. There's two important things I think that I took away from it. So first of all, the networking. Me being with Deloitte actually started with me contacting a individual just to kind of get their insights into that role because I had gone on to decided to do a lunch and learn on that topic. And so, you know, a quick little message, hey, as a practitioner, I'd like to know your insights on this. And that started the conversation, and I'd say it worked out really well. But then the second part, which was really interesting, is that it also kind of enables you to really start to use all of Queen's resources. So my second lunch and learn that I presented to the class was on blockchain. And Queen's has access to the Gartner repository of research. So me using that then and just becoming aware of it and then using it also translated into helping me out and my team throughout many deliverables as well further on into the program. So the teams, the club environment, yeah, it kind of serves those two purposes of you getting a really, I'd say, bridging the gap between the academic world and industry, and then also kind of just in a environment that doesn't really have any pressure, you can really start to understand and get a better lay of the land where the resources within Queens and ultimately using them.
I love that, bridging the gap. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially for those that are transitioning. So you gave a great example of how you utilize the resources to help get information that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. So this is a really good example of how someone who you know, has some experience in technology, but really was able to take that additional resources that the program offered and build out your network. So that's a great example. Thank you. And moving on to the other resources that we provide, we do, of course, have coaching services available to all of our students. In fact, you are assigned a career coach when you come into the program. And this is going to be a coach that's going to help you build out your network. They're going to help you develop a really strong presence in how you interview. They're also going to work with you on your resume, and essentially on how to apply for the specific jobs you're looking to apply to. And this is a value add, one that you won't find at any other MBA program. We really do provide a robust service under our Career Advancement Center, and the Career Coach is a big part of that. So we offer funded Toronto Trek trips. We also did do a Trek trip to Calgary, where, you know, at the time it was, we had quite a few students interested in going back to Calgary or looking for jobs in Calgary. So a great opportunity to network, and that was funded by resources at the school as well. We do have an executive coach option. So executive coaches really act as mentors. So if you are looking to go into an interview, for example, and you want to do some practice questions, maybe you're going into a case-based interview, which does require a lot of training and a lot of practice, you can utilize an executive coach to just practice those skills. And then, of course, we talked about the team coach briefly. During the first 6 months when you're in a team, you will have access to a team coach, and that person will be there to mitigate any issues and essentially to ensure the success of your team. And lastly, we do have a wellness coach. So this is a great resource to, again, get out of the classroom, outside of clubs and the curriculum, and do fun things. We offer many great activities like yoga, boot camps. I think our students did some canoeing last year, golf lessons. There really is a whole wide range of different activities that you can do, all included as part of the tuition and as part of what you get in the MBA program. Our investment, as you can see here, or rather your investment, is listed here. So when you're thinking about your return on investment, coming to Canada, relocating for any and all of the international students or prospective candidates listening in, this is ultimately what you should be researching, is what are the job acquisition statistics of the school you're looking at and the average starting salary package. You want to be able to pay these loans off as quickly as possible. We do have the highest average starting salary package of any MBA program in the country. And of course, our 95% is also the highest in the country 3 months after graduation. And this is a testament to our great resources that we offer, our career coaches, our alumni network, which is very vast. We graduate over 500 MBAs a year, and that includes 3 of our part-time MBA programs that we offer for students that are living and working in Canada. So those are some great resources as well. And many of them coming from the executive MBA programs are quite senior. And so having these connections also is an advantage. So taking advantage of course, our career coaching and our alumni network really does help us to see these numbers increase every year. And we've been very lucky to have such strong employment numbers year over year. And another thing to keep in mind, this is at 100% reporting rate. So again, do your research, do your due diligence, understand where these numbers lie within all of the schools that you're looking at. And then lastly, we'll quickly mention the on-campus recruiting cycle. So we do have an on-campus recruiting cycle that happens in September of every year. Again, given that our program starts in January, all of our students have a head start, 6 months of the core of the MBA, and then an additional 2 months to prepare yourselves before you get in front of corporates for the interview phase. But we also do a Toronto trip, which does give our students an opportunity at the end of the core of the MBA to start that networking and to get comfortable with sitting in on workshops and talking to corporates and alumni. So I'll turn it over to Blaine to discuss briefly his experience during on-campus recruitment and anything else that he'd like to share with regards to his coaching experiences.
Certainly. And so I was, safe to say, a participant in that Calgary trip. And so it was, I would say, a game changer because so this happened in August. So, kind of right before campus recruitment was going to happen. And basically the name of the game in campus recruitment is you got to be super effective with your time. I would say it's probably one of the more strenuous parts of the program. But the benefit was by me going to Calgary in August and getting access to the entire Queen's network in Calgary. Like I said, that completely and totally helped me out immensely because I had kind of put in that work. And then when it came to on-campus recruitment, it wasn't much in terms of fact finding that I really needed to do because all of these alumni had chatted with me and I was very well versed in the companies, their cultures, the roles that they were looking to hire for in the next 6 months. So that was amazing, and I'm very thankful for it. And then I think the other maybe coaching, and this is definitely a highlight of the year, is the wellness, because it kind of was the opportunities and the events that happened were just like were too accessible, and they were awesome. As an example, there was one where there's a historic site in Kingston, and so they took us out and near Halloween to get to it, and they do it up really well, and it's kind of makes you scared. There's a corn maze kind of thing to walk through, but overall the wellness aspect of it really got you away, disconnected with your classmates as well, in a social environment that again kind of connected all of us, all 80 of us, to be a really nice, tight-knit class.
Yeah, I think the wellness program is underrated in many ways. It's because it's optional. I would say that it's not really, I would say, an area that many people choose an MBA for, but I do think that it's a critical part of an MBA program that's intense and rigorous like ours. Being 1 year, it comes at you very quickly, and I'm sure you felt that at times. And so having this wellness program built right into the program helped to alleviate some of that stress and rigor, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I participated in most, so yeah, I would always go back.
Yeah, that's really good to hear, and I think most students do participate in as much as they can when they have time. All right, so to get to the end of our slide deck here, I'll just quickly mention the fees and scholarship options that we have. The fees, as you can see, domestic fees are $83,000, international fees are $99,500. Please remember that the resources that Blaine discussed, as well as what I talked about in terms of the coaching, all of this is included in the cost of tuition. We are one of the only all-inclusive program fees. Your cases, your textbooks, your materials are all included and delivered, in fact, right to your team room. All of the Toronto Trek trips, and in fact, the Calgary Trek as well was covered. There was a travel stipend for those trips. So when you're thinking about, again, your return on investment and your opportunity cost, this really is the best option for you if you're looking at an MBA in Canada. The financing options are listed on our website in more detail, so please visit our website to learn a little bit more about other options for funding. But listed here are scholarships. All of our scholarships are merit-based. We do have some donor-based scholarships as well that are quite specific. You can read about those on our website. For all women, we offer Forte Fellowships. So this is something that helps attract women, but also the resources that they provide as their own entity are fabulous for women looking to seek an MBA. So they have an MBA launch program, for example, that you can tap into, and great webinars and resources. So I do recommend for any of the women listening in, please check out fortefoundation.org. They provide great resources outside of the MBA that you choose, and they can help you get into a top MBA program like ours. RBC is a loan option. It's a bank in Canada, and they are our preferred lender for domestic students. And of course, we do have some financial loans for international students. We partner with Prodigy Finance as well as Empower Finance. So please visit our website to learn more about these international loan options. It's all going to be on a case-by-case in terms of what the percentage is and how much they loan, but they can do quick assessments if you visit their websites individually. You can also learn more about Empower specific scholarships. So that is an added benefit that they also offer scholarships. We provide a range of scholarships between $10,000 to $60,000. And as I discussed earlier, in terms of your qualifications, we assess everything holistically. There's not one aspect of your application that is weighted heavier than the other. The cost of living, Kingston is a small city, so it is going to be less expensive in comparison to maybe a larger city. The average costs here are per an individual's preferences, so keep that in mind. If you are bringing a partner or family member, please keep in mind that it will, of course, be dependent on how many people, but this is an average breakdown that you can see here, and of course, all of this is also listed on our website. And how you join our next class. So the qualifications are listed here. You can find more information again through our application advising team. So we do have two great application advisors, Megan Gee and Connor McCann. Either one of these application advisors can help provide you a preliminary assessment. So all we would need for that is your resume and your unofficial transcripts, and we will then walk you through the entire list of the qualifications that you need to have. Keep in mind, we don't take anyone to the end of an application if we don't see potential for your success. So the things that we are assessing are, of course, your accomplishments in your resume. We'll look at your academic background, and we look at the last 2 years to determine your GPA. Work experience should be a minimum of 2 years. The range for a full-time profile is between 2 to 8 years, generally speaking. 2 professional references should be submitted. So these are people that you've reported directly into. If you are an entrepreneur, then maybe a client might act as a great reference. If you work for a family business, please choose someone within the organization that's in a leadership role, but not a family member. So there's many ways that you can find great references. And again, please keep in mind that this is professional. We don't accept academic references. The standardized tests, we accept either a GMAT or a GRE, and more information can be found on either one of these sites. I recommend doing a practice test for either one of these tests and seeing where you feel most comfortable. Like I said earlier, the GMAT is the preferred in many cases. However, if you are not looking to work in management consulting or in finance, then of course the GRE might be a better test for you. It tends to be a little lighter on the quants and a little heavier on the verbal. So this is where doing a practice test for each or learning a little bit more about each of these tests will be in your best interest so that you can see where your skills lend themselves. And lastly, we do require 2 video questions and 1 written response as part of one platform. So you do not have to have any written essays as part of our application. We get the written sample from either the GMAT or the GRE. So this is why we have removed the requirement to have any written essays, and we're just looking for you to provide a short written response. You do have 10 minutes, and I believe it's 300 words maximum as part of that written response. And these questions are all behavioral. So to give you an example, one of the questions could be, what does being a leader mean to you? So these questions should be recorded on the spot. We get them as soon as you've completed the recording. There is no real requirements other than be professional. We want you to be within the time frame that you've been allotted, so be concise. And lastly, be authentic. We want you to showcase a little bit of your personality in these video questions. And lastly, we do also interview all of our candidates that meet our minimum requirements, but you do need to be invited. So this is not a guarantee that you will be invited to interview. You are assessed based on all of these qualifications. And if you are invited to interview, the interview is in a panel. So it's usually someone from our admissions team, myself or our director, alongside a career coach. And this is where you can prepare on the career side, getting familiar with Canada's economy, what type of jobs or companies you'd be looking to target. So this is how you can, on a high level, prepare. But of course, our application advisors provide you all of this information once you start an application. Please keep in mind that the applications are free. There is no cost to apply to our program, and there is no obligation. So I recommend the next step for you being applying with a resume and an unofficial transcript. Visit our website for more information to hear more about what the student's experience is like. We have some testimonials and a blog, a student blog that you can tap into. We also do have opportunities for virtual chats with our student ambassadors, and you can connect with me at any point in time via Skype, Zoom, or phone. So I ask you, what are you waiting for? If you're looking for an MBA, now is a perfect time, as most people around the world are at home. Not a great time for what's happening on the corporate side of things, but as Blaine assured us, business is still running in Calgary, and business is not as usual here in Canada. Things are on lockdown, but I can guarantee that we are still rolling admissions. We're still looking at applications. Now is a great time, if you do have some free time on your hands, to start an application, have a preliminary assessment done. Our application is running as usual. The only accommodations that we are making is if you cannot get official transcripts at this time, which we understand might not be feasible if your universities are closed. We will accept unofficials, but if you are enrolled into the program, then we will need officials by the start of the program in January. So we are understanding of the current situation that we are all in, and we are making accommodations on a case-by-case and as necessary. But to let you know, the test centers are all now moving, so GMAT and GRE are moving to online formats. So this is now a great time, if you do have some time on your hands, to start thinking about preparing for those exams if an MBA is in your future. So I'm going to ask Blaine one last question as we close out. If you could please provide a tip or a piece of advice to those listening in and thinking about an MBA.
Certainly, and if that's okay, I'm just going to almost reiterate is that I would say authenticity is the most important part. This is a lot of time, a lot of money to put into something. It's best to just come to the program saying, this is my good, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and saying this is how I want to proceed forward. And I would say that that does not mean idealized candidates. That just means authentic candidates.
Absolutely, that's great. I think you're absolutely right. This MBA programs are an opportunity for people to enhance their skills, to make big pivots and transitions like you did in your career. And being self-aware about your weaknesses is critical. It's important. So I would echo what Blaine said. I think that's a great piece of advice. And I'd like to thank you all for joining Blaine and I today. And I'd like to thank Mila for the opportunity. Well, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time. If you think of something after the fact, we're always able to connect with you as well offline.
Thank you for the thorough presentation. We do have some questions, and the first one is to Blaine. Was quitting your job to do an MBA a tough decision?
Sorry, just repeat that.
Was quitting your job to do an MBA a tough decision?
Absolutely, yeah. It was not something I made lightly, and there was, I would say, at least 4 months of me almost thinking about like even getting to the GMAT stage. But kind of once I got there, then it was, all the way through. And yes, like it was hard at the time, but then what really got me through it, I would say, is the fact that this is not just an investment for, like, say, 1 year. That, like, like, yes, the average salaries are great, but this is more so at 20 years, and I did not want to see my life carry forward that way. I thought there would be more, and clearly there is. So.
Thank you. Going to the next question. This one goes for Teresa. How many nationalities are represented in your full-time MBA currently?
Great question. Currently, we have 16 nationalities. Predominantly, we see candidates from China and India, biggest markets in the world, but we also have people from Italy this year, from France, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, very wide range. We also see quite a few students from Latin America. We have Costa Ricans, someone from Brazil, Mexico, Peru. So it is really a wide range. So 80 students each year. So it is a small cohort, and we're a 60-40 split. So 60% domestic and 40% international. So out of those international students, having 16 nationalities is quite diverse in a small program like ours.
Thank you. Another question for Blaine this time. What was the main reason to choose Smith School of Business?
I would say that it was, as cliche as it sounds, this was the best fit, full stop kind of thing. The program, the edge, the team edge aspect was just exactly what I was looking for. Like, I knew I needed a business education, but you can kind of get that anywhere. The Smith program just really resonated with me, and yeah.
Thank you. And Teresa, one question for you. How is tuition built? Can it be paid in installments? And are the fees that we are seeing in Canadian dollars?
Yes, good point. Yes, they are in Canadian dollars. And the fees are built in to include your tuition, your cases, your textbooks, your materials. So everything is included except your living expenses, and you pay in 3 installments. So there is a $6,000 deposit upon acceptance, which is taken off the first installment, which is in January. The second is in May, and the third installment is in September.
Thank you so much. We have one more question that is going to Blaine. How many people from your class pursued their careers after graduation in Canada?
I would say that basically, Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm aware of one person going to the States, but I would say everyone else sticks to Canada as far.
Yeah, I believe it was 96% in your year, Blaine, stayed and worked in Canada. So it was almost everybody. We did have a couple of students go international. One went back to his home country. One went to the US, but majority of students actually stay and work in Canada. Canada is very open for immigration, so something I didn't really touch on, but I can quickly now. Canada is probably one of the only countries in the world, given this time aside, that is, open borders, and we are the most relaxed immigration policies of any country in the world. So we have not only a diverse cohort, but also a very diverse country. And so Canada is a great option if you are looking to relocate, especially if you're looking to stay and work in Canada.
Thank you. That was a great wrap up for today's webinar. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to our wonderful panelists for the informative presentation and for taking the time to answer your questions. To those whose questions were not answered, we will send your questions to Teresa and Blaine and have them answer them in writing and send the answers to you. You will also receive a link with the recording of the webinar so we can rewatch it. And on behalf of the Unimi team, we wish you luck in your academic journey, and we hope to meet you again soon. Thank you, Blaine and Teresa. It was wonderful meeting you. and have a great day. Thank you for this webinar.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And thank you so much, Blaine.
Anytime. My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.